Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to this video. It is Thursday, the 23rd of June, 2022, and I am just looking at the alignment of these planets, which has been happening for the last few days. And tomorrow, the moon is going to move into position between Venus and Mars. As you'll know, the Israeli government has fallen, and they are in the process of dissolving it. Netanyahu is trying to build a new government in the current Knesset, and they don't think that is going to be likely because he's not going to be able to get enough people to join a new government in the current Knesset. So the coalition, or the current coalition, which is Bennett's and Lapid, are looking to dissolve it as quickly as possible. So there's lots of toing and froing, lots of shenanigans which are going on, and negotiations. Of course, as you can imagine, everyone's trying to get a piece of the next pie, which they think is coming up. But we know, according to these prophecies, it says that before it can be rebuilt, the Messiah will come. So they are looking at elections being on the 1st of November. That's the likely date which elections are going to be held. So it would need to be before then, I guess. And obviously that brings into the potential of a Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, rapture. But I'm just going to look at the potential of this alignment happening tomorrow, because this is obviously very, very interesting. So, first of all, let's start off with the sun. The sun is at the foot of Gemini, currently. And of course, we just had the summer solstice. So, what's interesting about the summer solstice is that the sun solstice means sun standing. So basically the sun stands still at that period of time. It's the longest part of the day in the northern hemisphere. So the summer solstice, if you watch the sun rising, it moves along the horizon, and when it gets to the summer solstice, it kind of stops, and then it actually stands still for 3 days, and then it starts to move backwards to the opposite end of the horizon. So, which I think is interesting. Obviously, Jesus was in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, and the sun stands still as it gets to the most or the furthest part on the horizon. Then it stands still and starts to move back. So, anyways, so the sun is at the foot of Gemini currently, which is interesting. When God talks about you shall bruise his heel. Obviously, that's the Messiah, Jesus, standing on the head of the serpent. Then as we move along, so here you can see they're quite small, so I'll zoom in. The first planet closest to the sun is Mercury. Here you can see Mercury, which is located right in between the horns of Taurus. And Mercury is said to be the messenger planet. So the messenger, the first planet, is right between the horns of Taurus, is the message judgment. What's also interesting about Mercury being closest to the sun, it has no atmosphere, and it's like the first Adam. The man, first comes the natural man, and then comes the spiritual. So Mercury has no atmosphere. And then going further to the easterly direction, or to the right, you can see there's Venus. And Venus is right next to the Pleiades, which is in the shoulder of the bull. So that's interesting that Venus is right there, and it's pretty much as close as you could get to the Pleiades, or the seven stars. So Jesus is described as the bright and morning star, and Venus is the first planet with an atmosphere, or the first planet closest to the sun with an atmosphere, and it's like the second Adam. That's the described as Christ, and there is the Spirit there. Venus is also the hottest planet. And what's interesting about Venus is that it takes longer to rotate on its own axis once than it does to orbit the entire sun, and it does so in the opposite direction. So it's the only planet, apart from Uranus, because Uranus is kind of on its side, but Venus rotates in the opposite direction, and it takes longer to rotate once on its own axis than it does to orbit the entire sun. So one Venus day is longer than Venus actually takes to orbit the sun, which is pretty interesting. Then moving along from Venus, next is interestingly Uranus. So Uranus is in Aries, and we know that Aries is the sacrificial ram. So that's obviously Christ, a picture of Christ being sacrificed. There you can see it's always been depicted in a vulnerable position, much like Capricorn as well, also just with its knees bent. And Uranus, of course, as you'll know, Uranus is considered the god of the sky, and that's an interesting place where Uranus is, because the moon is also right next to, or it's in the constellation of Aries. So you've got Mercury, the messenger planet, then you've got Venus, the bright morning star, then you've got Uranus, which is the god of the sky, or the sky god. And of course, God can use these things to his benefit. And then that's where the moon is located. So this is kind of where Earth would need to be if it was in this parade or this procession. That's where Earth would be. So there's Uranus, the god of the sky, and there's the moon, which is where Earth would be, third rock from the sun. And you'll see that Aries has always been depicted with its left hoof in the band of the fish, which goes vertical. So I think it's interesting that Uranus, the sky god, if you will, is at the very place where Aries is, with the moon where Earth would be, and its hoof is in the band of the fish, which goes vertical or upwards. Okay. Then, interestingly, comes Mars. Mars is next. And remember that these are all in order, except for Uranus and Neptune. Those are obviously right at the outer part of the solar system. But the inner known visible planets with the eye are all in their order. Then you see Mars, which is the malefic planet, or the planet of blood or war. That is on the band of the fish going backwards. So remember what E.W. Ballinger said, the vertical fish, the one that's going upwards, is the heavenly calling. That's the one that has the Messiah, the sacrificial lamb. His hoof is in the band of that fish going upwards, vertical, and that is the one with the sky god that's in that constellation. And then you have the band of the fish going backwards. That is the earthly calling. That's the Jews. That's Israel going back into the tribulation as opposed to up and into heaven. Then next along comes Jupiter, and Jupiter is obviously Tzedek, the planet of righteousness, the Messiah planet. It even looks like it has stripes. It has that big spot, the great spot, which is like him being pierced in the side. It even looks like flesh being torn by scourging or a whip. Okay. Then next comes Neptune. So Neptune is the god of the sea, and that is by the water bearer. And interestingly, seas and the ocean is a metaphor for the nations or the people or humanity at large. And I think that's interesting that Neptune is right there by the water bearer, and it's right between Saturn and Jupiter. So in the tribulation, there's going to be, that's the final, that's the final chance for mankind in the tribulation to either choose to be a follower of Christ, having witnessed the rapture, being left behind, and all the people are going to witness people going missing. And those are the tribulation saints. They are given reeds, and they are not given crowns and harps. They are the ones who are given palm leaves. So those are the multitude that no man could number, and they do not get the same reward as the ones who are given crowns and harps. So the ones who are in the throne room of heaven, they are made kings and priests unto our God. The ones who come in out of the tribulation, they are wearing, if you look at carefully what they are wearing, it's slightly different. It's described in a different way to the kings and priests, which are the 24 elders. Those are wearing the description of their white clothing is different to the white robes, which the multitude that no man could number, who come in out of the tribulation. So check that out in the book of Revelation. There's a slightly different description of the robes and the clothing that they are wearing. The kings and the priests who are in the throne room of heaven, and they throw their crowns on at the foot of Christ, obviously, and they're dressed in something different. It's just a different description. So anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So, I think it's interesting. The Neptune, the sea god, is there by the water being poured out, by, Aquarius, the water bearer, and it's in between Jupiter and Saturn. So that is seas, people, nations, and so forth. So I'm going to zoom out a bit. That's each of the planets. I'm going to zoom out a bit. I think it's amazing that they're all aligned in their order. And I'm going to go to so I'm looking at this from a celestial perspective at the moment, and I'm going to go to a terrestrial perspective. So this is going to be the perspective from Israel. Let's just go back. This is the rising of the sun. So I'm just going to leave it on the horizon like that. And then I'm going to, this looks like it's supposed to be a desert. Like there's a cactus. And I'm going to remove the constellation figures. And then I'm going to remove the constellation boundaries. And then I'm going to remove the actual constellation drawings themselves. And then I'm going to leave it like that. And there, as you can see, my friends, that is tomorrow from the perspective of Israel. This is from the perspective of Jerusalem. There's the sun arising. Let's go back. There's the sun arising. And as the sun is rising, there you can see Mercury. The sun is rising in Gemini. Then there's Mercury in the horns of the bull. Maybe we should just show constellation figures again. There's Mercury in the horns of the bull. There's Venus over there. There's Venus just by the Pleiades, just on top of it. That's Venus. Then you've got Uranus and the moon. This funny little squiggle over here. That's the sign for Aries, but that's in Aries. Then there's Mars right on the band of the fish going backwards. And there's Jupiter also in Pisces, righteousness, in the band of the fish going backwards. That's Israel. That's maybe the King of Kings making himself known unto Israel. Then you've got Neptune between Saturn and Jupiter. Neptune is the water bearer, the god of the ocean, or it used to be considered that. And then you have Saturn. So there are all the planets, every single one of them, aligned before Israel. And the 7 inner planets, or the ones that were visible by the eye, well, 6 of them, because obviously Earth can't see itself. But the moon is in the place of Earth, right there. So I think that's pretty fascinating. And I hope that we are not here until September. I hope that this is the sign of the rapture of the church. If it's not, I'm sure that we will speak to you very soon. I love you very much, and I'll see you in the sky.